Hey everyone, I'm Michael Short. Come on, let's go outdoors. Welcome to McCue Creek, where you could say it's out with the old and in with the new, as a construction project is underway to restore fish habitat along this tributary to the Red Deer River. This young bull trout finds itself in a precarious situation. During the summer months, this section of McCue Creek can dry up. Any fish unable to make their way downstream to the Red Deer River will more than likely perish. Contributing to the issue, McCue Creek has been plagued with a hanging culvert. This means fish like bull trout are unable to reach spawning grounds further upstream.
There's about 7 kilometers of stream length upstream of this culvert that the bull trout could be using for spawning that they currently can't access. The second threat is sedimentation. So there was a lot of erosion at this site as well, and that sediment gets into McCue Creek and flows down into the Red Deer River. And that reduces the spawning success of not only bull trout, but all the other trout species here as well. And the third threat, when the stream does dry up periodically, like it is right now, fish that are stranded in that scour pool below the crossing typically will die. And so that's a direct removal of those fish from the population.
For the past 3 years, Alberta Transportation has been working through potential solutions to improve fish passage. Taking into account the steep slopes of the area, a recommendation of a single-span bridge was the best solution to this crossing.
Well, we have a bridge conceptual design now, and we embed the culverts or sink them, and we have a fish passage memorandum of understanding with Alberta Environment that we need to provide fish passage, and we also have to meet DFO's fish passage requirements. So we look at fish species that are here and make sure that they can pass through the culvert. Before, like this culvert's 50 years old, and I'm not sure what the engineering went into it and the hydrotechnical that they looked into, but we look into a lot more details now.
With the redesign and installment of the bridge, about 7 kilometers of McCue Creek will be opened up to bull trout and provide access to traditional spawning grounds. The upper reaches of the creek will also provide habitat for the rearing of the bull trout fry.
This stream is interesting in that some sections typically dry up while others will continue to flow. So right here where we're standing, for some reason, is a section that will occasionally dry up in the fall when there's less rain. Further upstream, as you move further upstream, you'll get into areas where there is constant flow year-round. And so those areas provide much better habitat for spawning because it's consistent flow, not only spawning but overwintering and feeding as well. So accessing that area is very important. Bull trout will use this area as well when there is water here, but it's also just that added benefit of having the additional 7 kilometers of stream length. So this is a busy landscape. As I mentioned, there's a lot of industry and a lot of recreation taking place in the upper Red Deer River and in the McCue Creek watershed as well. Industry, in this case, there's logging upstream and there's logging roads, which are potential contributors of sediment. So industry being diligent in maintaining those roads and reducing sedimentation is a direct way that they can have an impact on the trout populations here. Similar with recreationalists, there's a lot of OHV activity in the area, and OHV trails can be a source of sediment in the streams. So I would say recreationalists should advocate for sustainable trails and sustainable land use and other users to be responsible in the landscape.
Now you might be asking yourself, why go to all this trouble to improve bull trout habitat?
So in the upper Red Deer River watershed in general, the bull trout population is classified at high risk right now. So we electrofished the population in 2017 and compared our catch rates to provincial standards, so catch rates across the province. And so the catch rates here are lower than average. They're quite a bit lower, which puts them at a high risk, in a high risk category. If we were to address the threats in this watershed, which are fragmentation due to stream to road crossings, invasive species such as brook trout, erosion and sedimentation, and angling mortality, which is both poaching and incidental catch and release mortality. If we were able to address all those, we could get the population up to a moderate risk, which is much more sustainable long term, and would be an increase in probably 20 to 30%.
And in case you didn't know, bull trout are also Alberta's provincial fish, and if a number of conservation steps can be taken today, the future of this fish species may improve.
They really tell you a lot about how a watershed is doing, what the water quality is like, and what the overall habitat in a watershed is doing. So improving conditions for bull trout will ultimately result in positive impacts on water quality, flow rates, consistent flow throughout the season, and all that has an impact on users downstream. So those living in Red Deer, for instance, benefit from consistent flows in the Red Deer River and all its little tributaries. So caring for the bull trout here really does equate to caring for your watershed and your water source.